Hello and welcome once again to In Conversation on Revelation TV. Now, my guest today is someone who could only be described as inspirational. He goes by the name of Jeff Steinberg, and he has an amazing story and testimony that I know is going to bless you completely. So I want to welcome you, Jeff, to the program.
Thank you, and it's really, really lovely to be here, and it's exciting. I think it's like the second time I've been on a British television program.
I'm really excited to have you here, and I know that we're going to be seeing some of your music throughout the programme, your beautiful singing, and I can't wait to elaborate on that. But again, I want to welcome you, and I just want to say, how are you finding England so far? How many times have you been here, and how do you find it to be back?
This is our fifth trip in 6 years, and I love the UK. I love the history, I love the traditions, I love the majesty. We've sung in churches that were built in the 1300s. We've looked and held a Bible that was 500 years old. It's just an amazing, wondrous place. And y'all talk funny over here.
We talk funny.
Yeah.
You talk funny.
No, y'all talk funny
Y'all
over
talk
here.
funny.
Yeah, and y'all drive on the wrong side of the road.
I've heard this, but I don't know if I believe that myth.
Well, see, in America, where I live, in America, we drive on the right side of the road.
Okay.
So the opposite of right has to be wrong.
No. One thing I would say about America, you have lots of nice wide roads. So that's
Yes, we
something-
do. Yes, we
That's
do. We
true.
take up a lot of space.
Now, I want to start just by talking a bit about you. You were born with no arms and malformed legs,
Yes.
but you've never let that hold you back, and you've actually used that to, form part of your story and encourage people. What can you tell us about that?
It's, without sounding corny, it's my hook. If I were like everybody else, there wouldn't be a reason as much. I was born with no arms, no hands. I'm 59 years old, and I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And my mother didn't know about my disability till I was 17 months old.
Wow.
And she didn't see me for the first time until I was almost 2 years old in a children's welfare shelter in Philadelphia. And she picked me up and she held me in her arms and she paced the floor with me in her arms. And then she turned and she placed me back and she swung around, looked at my father, stood as tall as her 4'8" frame would hold her. And she said, "I'm ready to leave now. Take me home." And a lot of years later, it took a lot of years and a lot of tears, and my mom and I finally came to terms. And she looked at me and she said, "Jeffrey, I did not nurse you. I did not raise you. I didn't even know how to love you. My father didn't want my mother to know. The doctors didn't think I would live. My father thought he was doing her a favor by protecting her from hurt. The result of what caused my disability is somewhat unknown, and yet we believe it was because of a drug that my mother was given by the doctors. She was having a lot of difficulty with the pregnancy. Mm-hmm. She was spotting, and she was very, very nervous, and she was at the point of almost losing the pregnancy. And the doctor gave her this new medicine that had never been used before, or at least not that she knew of. And he said it would increase the body's immune system. And the only thing we can figure is that it was probably thalidomide. Mm-hmm. And we know now that thalidomide does increase the body's immune system. I rarely get sick. I rarely get, and I've had everything in my mouth, from pencils to doorknobs to, just you name it. Yeah. Forks, spoons, microphones, whatever. And but I didn't live at home. When I was 2.5 years old, I was placed into the care of the Shriners Hospital for Crippled Children. Mm-hmm. There they operated on my legs. They cut open my right knee. They discovered there was no joint.
Wow.
And they fused it back together stiff, and in so doing, they damaged a lot of the growth tissue. And so I'll always be 4 feet 6 inches tall.
How do you take that sort of history and what you've had to go through from being a child and use it as something that will inspire people? Because you're the most happiest, joyful person that I've met today, definitely. And, you know, you're not looking at what others may see as wrong. You're actually triumphing over that.
Well, as a child, I was always the kid who, don't ever tell me I can't. My dad used to tell me, Jeffrey, you never know what you can do until you try. So never say I can't until you try. Because the difficult we do right away, the impossible takes a little longer. Like, for example, I used my feet. I would write with my feet. I would feed myself with my feet. Now, you should try that. It'll add a new dimension to the... No. Yeah, it'll add a new dimension to the taste of your food.
Cheese, maybe.
I was the kid who took watches apart to see what made them tick, with my mouth and with my feet. I write using a pen in my mouth now. But it was a few years after all of this that I finally got to the place where, I'm getting to that is the doctors came to me and they said at one point, Jeffrey, we're going to send you home because we can't do anything more with you till you stop growing. So I told them to wait a week. I was the kid with the attitude, I was the Philadelphia boy. And so I got to go home, and I thought my life was going to be perfect. And I thought my life was going to be normal. But I've learned that life is rarely ever perfect. And normal is a euphemism for being ordinary or average or unnoticed. And I only got to live at home a total of 9 months of my life because my dad would leave for work early in the morning. He would come home for dinner at 4:30. And then he would go teach Hebrew school in a Jewish day school or in the synagogue till about 10:30 at night. So it got to be too hard for my mom to take care of me and 3 girls. Obviously, it was the girls that were the problem. It's always the girls that are the problem, right? Oh, that's right. Wrong person to ask. So I was moved 63 miles away to the Good Shepherd home, a home for kids with disabilities and old people. And I lived there for 10 and a half years. But while I was there, I moved there when I was 9 years old on Halloween Day, October 31st, 1960. And I came to know, because of a little teeny tiny church 4 doors down from Good Shepherd, and a group of Sunday school teachers, I began to be taught that I, Jeff Steinberg, am fearfully and wonderfully made, that God makes no mistakes,
Wow.
that I'm a masterpiece in progress.
Now, you use that term, a masterpiece in progress, and that's one of your, statements that you carry with you all around the world. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Well, I believe that God, when we in the church say God made man to be in his image, right away we conjure up these pictures of what God must look like. I don't think so. I think God made man to be in his imagination. He closed his eyes and he said, now, if I were going to make Jeff Steinberg, what would I want him to be like? What colors could I put into his life? What talents and gifts can I give him that makes him stand out and get noticed? And what could he really accomplish for me? Mm-hmm. I think we miss the point. Being in the image of God is to be in God's design. Well, he made Rochelle to be somebody special with the talents and the gifts and the beauty that you have and the abilities that puts you on television, that gives you everything you need to showcase him in an excellent way. And the same thing with me.
Definitely.
We were in a school yesterday, and I asked the children, I said, what is a masterpiece? And one boy said, something made perfect. Another one said, a piece of art unlike any other. These are children. And I'm sitting here saying, wow, this is great, you know?
Yeah.
But the song came out of something I had said in service in California, and I was preaching. And I said, we're all becoming a masterpiece, one color at a time. All that God designed for us to be. See, I believe that I'm not handicapped because of my disability or my limitations. I'm not handicapped because I wear a myoelectric arm. Or that, you know.
You didn't show me that before the break.
Yeah.
Before we
How about
started.
that? Stick your finger in there. I believe that a handicap is none of these things. I think that a real handicap is anything that keeps me from being or becoming all that God designed for me to be. And He designed for me to be unique.
Yeah.
He
And I
desi-
just want to stop you there, actually, because one of your one of the unique things about you is that you actually sing. And you were just talking about becoming a masterpiece. So let's have a look at your music video, which is called Masterpiece in Progress.
When an artist starts painting on a blank piece of canvas, doesn't always look very good. You're wondering what it's gonna be like when it's done, if it's ever gonna look like it should. When the colors start blending, shapes begin forming, you begin to see the master design. When the last stroke is painted and the brush is laid down, it's exactly what he had in mind. I'm a masterpiece in progress. He is still working on me. I may not look like it yet. You better bet I'm becoming all he wants me to be. I'm a masterpiece in progress. Won't be too long till I'm done. A few more strokes of the brush and the master's touch. I'll be in the image of the sun. When you look at me, you'll see a half-finished picture, pieces of what I'm gonna be. God is still working real hard in my life, painting things that only He can see. Sometimes the colors are bright ones, sometimes they're dark ones. They're all a part of what He has planned. He'll complete what He started in His own perfect time, if I submit to the brush in His hand. I'm a masterpiece in progress. He is still working on me. I may not look like it yet. You better bet I'm becoming all He wants me to be. I'm a masterpiece in progress now. Won't be too long till I'm done. A few more strokes of the brush and the master's touch. I'll be in the image of the sun. I'm a masterpiece in progress. Jesus is working on me. I may not look like it yet. You better bet I'm becoming all He wants me to be. I'm a masterpiece in progress. Won't be too long till I'm done. A few more strokes of the brush and the master's touch. I'll be in the image of the sun. The sun. The sun. You're a masterpiece, and you're a masterpiece, and you're a masterpiece, and me, I'm a masterpiece in progress. Yeah.
Okay, so Jeff, we just saw your music video, which is called Masterpiece in Progress, and it was just really awesome singing. What can you tell us about that song?
When I was in California, I was preaching, and I said, each of us is becoming one color at a time, the masterpiece that God had designed for us to be. And my partner at the time was a young man by the name of Jeffrey Rudloff, who was a keyboard player, songwriter, tenor singer, just an amazing guy. And he called me a couple of nights after we got home, and he said, I got the title song for your next album. And I said, really? And he says, yeah, it's called Masterpiece in Progress. And he started to read me the lyrics. And I could hear this little simple string line, and as the song developed lyrically, this became this big orchestral masterpiece.
Wow.
And it kind of became my theme. It became the title of my book. I have a book about my life called Masterpiece in Progress, published worldwide by New Leaf Press. And musically, I guess I'm told that Neil Diamond sounds like me.
I just want to say, actually, with your music, just so everyone at home, Jeff has actually been in ministry for over 40 years, and you've travelled to some places that I've never been to and many other people haven't been to. What are some of the places that you've visited?
Well, we've been to Costa Rica for ministry to the disabled, and we've sung in churches over there. I've been to Germany to sing for the military troops over there. I've been all over the UK. England, Scotland, South Wales, and Belfast, Northern Ireland.
And what are some of the testimonies that you have from some of the places that you've been to?
Well, one of the neat things about what I do is I sing and speak in prisons and schools. So when I walk up to a man who feels like his life is, all out of control, and he's a prisoner, he doesn't look at me and say, well, that's easy for you to say, because, my life is a little different. It's kind of like him, and he finds quickly that I understand what it is to be in a place where your life is not your own, mm-hmm. your time is not your own. But I look them straight in the eye and I tell them, you can have a freedom that goes beyond bars, beyond razor wire, beyond fences. Mm-hmm. I have one story that's pretty neat. You told me earlier you were from Nigeria. This story ought to hit home to you. There was a man there in the first prison we ever sang in at HMP Buckley Hall. First year we were here. And I was nervous. I'd never been in a British prison before. Of course, they didn't know what to do with me. They wanted to fingerprint me. I said, not today. Ain't going to happen. So I have a song that we do on my Tiny Giant album called It's a Long Way Up When You're Coming From Nowhere. And this one man, about 4 rows down in the aisle, he looked like the actor Michael Clark Duncan. He was massive, had arms the size of tree trunks, and his arms were folded, and he looked at me kind of like, I dare you, And the song has a line in the chorus that says, you got to fight a little harder, you got to push a little more. And so I started taking my shoulder and shoving him. And everybody went, ah! And I knew I had just pushed and shoved the baddest man in the prison. So I waited for what seemed like forever. It was only a matter of seconds. And all of a sudden, he started to grin at me, big, the hugest grin. I found out last year that he gave his life to the Lord as a result of that service, that concert. Wow. I don't know if it was the same day or if it was a few days later, but the chaplain told me, she said, for the first 7 weeks, she said, you were all he talked about. And I said, well, whatever happened to him? She said, well, it's funny you should ask, because I just found out last week. After he was released, he went back to Nigeria, and he became a pastor.
Wow.
And she said, Jeff Steinberg, you had a lot to do with it.
Wow.
And I thought, that's the kind of thing, children that come up to us and want to know, and they come to me years later and they say, I'm a believer because you came to my school, because you encouraged me. I like to have fun. I go into schools. I have a little boy that came up to me a number of years ago, and he pointed to my hook, and he wanted to know what it was, and I told him, I said, it's a hook. What you got that for? I said, because I don't have any hands. Why don't you have any hands? I told him I used to bite my fingernails, and one day I went too far. And he hadn't been or clipped his fingernails since the boys got claws. I tell stories like that all the time because it gets people's attention. One of the things we talked about before we started was the value of entertainment in ministry. And I think we minimize entertainment. I think that entertainment has to be there because otherwise you lose the audience. I've slept through many of church services because they were boring. I believe that you don't get anybody's attention until you grab it, until you show them something.
Yeah. Jeff, just on that note, because we've only got a few moments left of the program, I could literally continue talking to you for a long time, but there might be quite a few Christians watching this who feel like yourself that they're called to do something in ministry, but they feel like they don't have what it takes or they feel limited in some way. What would you say to them in a few sort of words?
In 3 really easy steps, probably the hardest thing you'll ever do, start with knowing who you are. Know that you're a masterpiece. Know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Know that God did not make any mistakes. Know that when you look in the mirror, he made you to be someone special because he loves you, and that you are lovable, that you are desirable. And know who he is to you, your father, your friend, your lover, the one who picks you up when you fall, forgives you when when you know who you are and you know your identity in Christ, then and only then can you develop the relationship, which is the second step. Get close, be intimate. I've looked at the picture of the Last Supper recently and said, where I would like to be is where John was. The guy who could lean in close and whisper in Jesus' ear and hear him say, you don't know how much I love you.
Wow.
I don't believe Jesus died on the cross so that I could go to heaven, and I don't believe he died so I could escape hell. I do believe he died to restore the relationship that was lost in the garden when Adam sinned.
Jeff, that is awesome. I have to stop you there because we want to go to your next music video, and we're actually going to go out with that music video. So I just hope that you have been inspired and challenged and encouraged by what Jeff has been speaking about. We're going to finish now with his next music video, which is called Tiny Giant. God bless you, and thank you so much for tuning in.
I may not be big and tall, as everyone can see. Actually, I'm rather small. Take a look at me. As you can tell, I'm not so strong, not your average set of bones. But I have realized all along, I am not alone. There's a giant that lives inside of me, a giant that everyone can see. I'm a tiny giant. I'm weak when I am strong. I'm a tiny giant. I'm known all day long. I'm a tiny giant. Tell me, can't you see? He is strong when there's a giant inside of me. such a great big God can be in such a tiny space. We'll always be a mystery. It's a miracle of grace. There's a giant that lives inside of me, a giant that everyone can see. I'm a tiny giant. I'm weak, but I am strong. I'm a tiny giant. I know it all along. I'm a tiny giant. Tell me, can't you see? He is strong when I am this giant inside.